Hello friends, this is Dr. Amarjeet Kaur, Professor of Accounting and Business Communication at the Department of Management, Gurugram University, Gurugram. So it's a great journey, so learning is going on well. So I'm very happy to be with you this day to talk about importance and scope of financial management. So we started with this new series of financial management, and we had just 2 sessions so far, and those were about what is financial management. We understood objectives, etc. Today we are going to talk about importance and scope, and also the disciplines other than accounting, which are connected to financial management, which help us perform financial management better. Those disciplines would be discussed. So friends, we all know that financial management is all about processes and techniques to manage financial resources of a company very effectively, right? So whatever we do to manage financial resources of a company, which includes procuring funds as well as their utilization effectively, is known as financial management. Now question is, we are talking about the scope and the importance. So let me start with scope first. So irrespective the size, the age of the company, the origin, either it is based on North India or North America, financial management is the backbone for any company's success. So irrespective of the size or age or origin of the industry, and this certainly comprises a range of processes and techniques which are used to manage financial resources of an organization. So it becomes imperative to understand the scope as well as importance of financial management, considering it is prevalent everywhere. It is to be practiced by every size of business, every age of business, be it 1-year-old business or 100 years of old business. We need to have the function being financial management being carried very effectively to ensure success and to sustain that success both, right? So it is that much important. So that's why we are talking about this financial management scope and importance. So coming to scope of financial management, there are two approaches in the literature which suggest how we can decide or look at the scope of the financial management. First approach is known as traditional approach, and the second approach is known as modern approach. So let's talk about traditional approach first, and then we will proceed with modern approach. So what is the traditional approach of financial management? As per this approach, the scope of financial management or financial function is restricted to procurement of funds only. And according to this approach, finance is not required for routine events, but for specific events like reorganization, liquidation, expansion, etc. So let me explain this to you. So we are saying financial function is limited to procurement of funds, and how we would procure after assessing the needs of the organization, means assessing the needs first, that how much funds do I need to carry X function or Y function, to carry X expansion or Y expansion, or to introduce X new product or Y new product. So basically this approach just focuses on that how much funds are needed, how many resources of fund providers are available, and to choose the best resource to seek the funds from, right? So getting the by point, only the procurement part is being taken care. Finance has only to look after the getting the funds for meeting up different operations or requirement of the business. But this is this is something which is half of the concept we see now. So but because we are considering or talking about traditional approach only, This approach is limited to this aspect only, the procurement aspect only, which means this concept or this approach, traditional approach of financial management, it assumes or it undertakes that the finance is limited to only reorganization of business function, or when the business is liquidating, or when the business is expanding, those specific events. It is not involved for routine events, day to day, that how would I pay salaries tomorrow, how would I pay to my suppliers next week, how would I fund any small promotion activity, how would I pay back my interest of the debt I am using, how would I pay back principals, all those day to day events are not considered in this traditional approach. Rather, it focuses only at the specific events which are long term, which are peculiar in nature, and they do not happen in routine. Further, according to this approach, the financial manager is not responsible for efficient use of funds, and the only responsibility is to get funds on fair terms from outside parties. And traditional approach, it continued till the 5th decade of 20th century. It's very interesting, until 1950. So, half of the 20th century, we were just considering, whenever we were talking about the scope of the financial management, of course nobody, I wasn't born by that time even, it was considered that the only function of a finance guy is to procure funds. He is not responsible for utilization of funds, which is now paid more attention and importance to, as if we talk about present scenario, the current scenario. So this was the scope of traditional, scope of financial management as per traditional approach was very limited, very restricted to the procurement of funds only, which certainly comprises making an analysis of the suppliers available, making an analysis of the cost from all the different suppliers available to you as an option, and then deciding about the final supplier or final source of funds. But primarily is that assessing the need and then getting the funds, that's all. After that, my job as a finance guy is over. Then this is up to the marketing manager or production manager or any other operation manager to look into the utilization part, not my job, I am done. This is how the finance manager was perceived and acting as. Now, there were many limitations of this approach, as would have been clear to you by this time. So, to name a few, number one, it was one-sided approach. Number two, it considers the viewpoint of outside parties only. Number three, doesn't look into utilization of funds. Number four, it emphasizes on sporadic events only. And lastly, number five, it focuses on the financial issues of the corporate. Let me explain these points to you. So, why is it one-sided approach? Because we are just concerned, as a finance guy, I am a certified management accountant, I am CMA, I am member of Chicago chapter, right? So, I have been teaching accounting, I have been practicing accounting from the last 30 plus years. My PhD is in finance only. So, I can say very surely today, when we look back, because traditional approach is no more practiced. We are discussing because we need to know, because we are discussing the subject as a whole. So, it is one-sided approach. How? Simply because, we are concerned up to procurement, that is it, full stop. After that, I am not concerned about the utilization of, effective utilization of funds at all. So, that is why we call it a one-sided approach. And believe me or not, even then, even today, there are certain small companies which we call as Lala companies. They still, the finance guy, they are still concerned about this function only. Because Lala ji will say, I will see how to utilize. बस आप इतने पैसे अरेंज कर दीजिए, बैंक से डील कर लीजिए, डेट इशू कर दीजिए, शेयर्स इशू कर दीजिए, या कोई टर्म लोन इशू कर दीजिए, आप लाइए, बाकी मैं देख लूँगा. So even then it becomes a traditional approach, because finance guy is not given the leeway to think about utilization, not to make even a plan to utilize the funds. So that's why we call it as one-sided approach. The second point was that we consider only the viewpoint of outsiders. How come? Because when I, as a finance manager or finance or controller, financial officer or whatever name we may call it as, I am dealing with outside parties who are going to supply me funds, and I am bargaining with them. I am seeking their viewpoints. Ki, this is the cost of funds today. The funds have become very expensive. Next few cycle, next few days, or next a quarter is going to be good or bad, and there would be shortage of funds available, or plenty of funds available, whatever. We are considering the viewpoint of the suppliers, the outside parties. We are not much concerned about that. How would I utilize it? How would my team, how would my peers in the workplace would utilize it, or would they be able to? For example, if my new product development guy is looking for 10 crores rupees, right? As per this approach, you as a finance officer would be concerned about procuring 10 crores at the minimum cost, maybe 7, 10, 8%, whatever is in your mind, or you understand as per the market is there. You will never think, you will consider the viewpoint of the supplier, that this supplier cannot serve more than supply at not less than 8%, the other cannot supply at less than 10%, and so on. So you will try to bargain, or you will try to get the money from the supplier who is going to supply at the minimum cost. Fine, that is good up to this point. But the problem would be if the same finance guy is ignoring the return the product manager is expected to get on the product. If the new product is very important, is promising in future, but for initial 4 years, 3 years, 2 years is going to give you 6% of return, right? And to you are happy that the minimum return or minimum cost I have to spend is 7%, and you are happy procuring at 7%. You are understanding only the supplier's point of view. You are not looking after who is demanding that money, who is going to use that money. They have made all the calculation, and they understand, the marketing department or the product design department, or the finally whosoever is responsible, they understand that it is not going to give you more than 6% return, or more than 5.5% return for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So you will completely ignore this point because you are not worried about the utilization. So this is the very big limitation, because if you know that my returns are not going to be more than 6% for the next 4, 5 years, you as a finance guy should never procure any funds at 7%. It's a clear losing situation, right? But you are not worried because your approach is to get at the funds at the minimum cost at the earliest possible time. So this is a limitation of this approach. The third is, it doesn't look into utilization of fund at all. It's just that you are worried about that I have to get the funds by this date to this department. But how would that department utilize it? You will never seek explanation from them. You will never seek a plan from them. Otherwise, the department who is raising the money or is looking for certain funds should submit a detailed proposal about the projection, that how those funds will be utilized, how and when, how much percentage of the funds which have been demanded would be utilized. So it is not done at all here in the traditional approach. The fourth point is, it is a limited approach which is focusing only on sporadic events. What are sporadic events? Sporadic events are random events, sporadic. They are not routine in nature. For example, expansion. For example, introducing a new product, introducing a new plant, increasing the plant capacity, or getting into new market. For everything, all these examples, you need funds, of course. But this doesn't happen every day. Other than these events which are sporadic in nature, You do need funds for payment of salaries, the smallest of small thing, to pay the telephone bills, to pay rentals, to pay for a cup of tea you serve to your clients, isn't it? Even that is also the expense your department has to spend at and need to take care. So we lose our sight from those expenses, and we just focuses on sporadic events. And the fact of the matter is, nowadays, there are many sectors. If you look at the IT sector, if you look at the AI ML sector, here the major cost is not into production. Here the major cost is of the variable cost, not of fixed nature. You just need one small room and your startup is working developing a software. You hardly need any area, I mean any physical facility or so, but your variable cost is very high. You have to pay for rentals, for your internet. You have to pay salaries to employees. You have to pay for food of employees. All the variable costs, not a fixed cost. If your employees, if you have hired a specialist in as a consultant, if you are paying salaries to permanent employees, that's a fixed cost. We tend to ignore that thing. So we are paying more attention to sporadic events, whereas these costs are which are regular routine. One is the variable one is a routine. Salary could be fixed expenditure, but it is a routine expenditure, so you may not pay attention, right? So it's not only variable part, I am talking about the routine and the specific events. So you tend to ignore the routine part, which may be very high in total expenditure you incur in 5 years, right? You have to pay salaries every year, you have to pay for traveling of employees every month, every day, you have to pay for food. In most of the young businesses are doing that nowadays. They provide food facility to their employees. So we are ignoring completely all these aspects. And the last point was that focus is on the financial issues of the corporate. We do not pay any attention on investment. We do not pay attention on how would we distribute dividend. So all those aspects, what would we do with the profits we make, that is to retain or to distribute, or how would I invest? I may get funds 100 crores, X crores, but how much I would put or invest in plant, how much would I invest in development of a new product, which is R&D, how much I put in bringing in more employees, or good or procuring good employees, etc., etc. So we do not, or how much I would spend in raw material, that is working capital management. So we ignore it completely, right? So this was the traditional approach. Now let me talk about the modern approach. That what does modern approach talk about? So the modern approach in the finance is very important, and this is what we are practicing today. So by the end of 1950, world witnessed technology upgradation, development of strong corporate structure and increasing competition, and these aspects propelled management to make optimum use of available funds. What does it mean? These few lines are actually emphasizing that post 1950 era, where industrialization was happening. In fact, it happened by that time. It started happening. I'm talking about post World War era and industrialization when they was picking up. And then that was a time when technology started coming in. We saw development of couple of things, machines which were able to work for 20 men in the factory. There were many machines which were technology based and were able to be replaced by to replace two humans, and there was a corporate structure developing those days. So strong corporate structure was developing. People were trying to define the hierarchy, define the functions which are supposed to be undertaken by various departments, or the hierarchy in the hierarchy of a structure. and that was the time which propelled the management to think of that who would be responsible for utilization of funds, right? Because the organizational structures were defined, new structures were defined, that this department, this person would be reporting to this department or this person, and so on, right? And technology was also intervening, machines were coming in, machines were developed in different areas, and that is the time when management was at different organizations, managements were dwelling on this aspect, that who would be utilizing the, or who would be answerable to utilize the funds. And that was the time it was decided that this would be the financial management only. The function of financial management means financial controller or finance guy, to ensure not only to procure but to ensure the utilization aspect as well. That is what we call as investment. And according to this approach, the financial management is concerned both for acquisition of funds and optimum utilization of funds. And this approach, not only irregular events are considered, but long term as well as short term, both financial problems or events are considered, which means this modern approach is not one sided approach, it's a two sided approach. It takes care of both the sides of the coin. The funds are there, of course the guy has to make an assessment that how much funds are required for any particular duration of the business operation, as well as to look after that how to ensure optimum utilization of funds. And when we talk about the optimum utilization, we decide that how much fund would be retained in long term assets, how much amount of the procured funds should be retained in short term funds, and then at what point or an interval of time should we be releasing the funds to the different departments for different projects. So even the release of fund is decided, because that has an effect on the total cost of the funds, right? And irregular events like uh, uh, you know raising a new or coming up with a new model of the product, or developing a new product itself, including a new plant in the total production setup, or bringing up a new research and development project, merger and acquisition. All those are specific events, irregular ones. But this approach says no, these are not the only things to be considered by a finance guy. A finance guy should be responsible for other small to big financial problems as well, like how would I pay salaries if I have I'm a business which is running the seasonal business, right? So there would be off season as well, because I'm into a seasonal business. My demand of the product is not constant throughout the quarters or years, all the months. So which means as a finance guy, I need to look into the liquidity, especially during those months or those weeks where my business, my products do not sell. What will I do during those 2 3 months to pay salaries, to pay rent, to pay insurance, etc., etc. So this is a short term or mid term approach. You may say a short term approach, but this is a financial problem, right? We need to look into that. So we need to look into also that if I earn XYZ amount of profit, should I distribute to the investors or should I retain it to fund my next quarters, next quarters operations, especially in seasonal businesses. So these issues are also considered. Not only the cost is considered, but also the composition of the capital is considered. That how much would be in the debt form, how much would be in the stock form, in the equity form. So this is the scope as per modern approach. So as per the modern approach, just to conclude this, the main components of financial management, they include financial planning, evaluation of alternative use of funds, capital budgeting, determination of cost of capital, determination of financial standard to ensure success to businesses. So this slide has a lot many aspects which have been mentioned. You must have read by this time that we are starting with the planning. The finance guy, as per this approach, as per the modern approach, has to start with financial planning, means making an assessment that how much funds would be required by seeking inputs from various departments, of course, not individually, by involving all concerned into the process. Then evaluating what are the different sources of funds, where can I get the funds from. Then also evaluating the use of funds, that if, let's say, as a business, I am a new business, or I may be an old business, I can easily or comfortably I assess a realistic figure of 200 crores which I can procure in the year of 2024-25, right. So as a finance guy, I will evaluate the use of those funds. If I do not approve the X demand by X department, what would be the best use of the same funds? Because funds have cost, right. So shall I allocate X amount to X department or Y department? There are two departments who are demanding 100 crores, let's say. So this is the responsibility of the finance guy to assess the, so either the return on X is higher or Y is higher, right. We do capital budgeting, that investment decision. Capital budgeting is also known investment decision, right. Where should I invest those funds at? And then the finance guy, the financial management, the scope is to work at the cost of capital too, right. We have different sources of capital. We need to decide the right core source to be selected from, and also to see or to decide which is the best source. And then also the standards of financial standards are to be built, or they also come under the purview of financial management. So the scope of financial management as per modern approach is very wide, and that's why we call it is very, very important as well. So I hope you could understand the scope of financial management. Both traditional and modern approach have been discussed in detail, and I hope I was able to explain it well. With this, I would like to wind up this session. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you.